Before the world knew what had truly happened, the Book of Giants revealed a terrifying truth, one that was hidden, one that still echoes in the darkest corners of human history. It's the story that no one talks about, the story that exposes what happened when angels, beings of immense power, dared to break divine law. Their fall, their rebellion, gave birth to the monstrous Nephilim, whose very existence shook the heavens and the earth. But what happened to them? Why were they erased from the pages of history? Why has this story been buried, ignored, and swept under the rug for so long? In this video, you will uncover the mystery that has haunted humanity for millennia. You will discover the truth behind the Nephilim and the fallen watchers, beings once exalted in the heavens, now cursed to roam the earth as restless spirits. You'll see how their forbidden knowledge corrupted the earth, and how their destruction by the great flood was not just an act of divine wrath, but a cleansing of unimaginable evil. You will learn how the giants' terror, their shocking realization of their fate, and their desperate plea for mercy only led to their inevitable doom. The question that has echoed through time is this: who were the sons of God? Why did they abandon their heavenly station and fall into darkness? What became of their giant offspring, the Nephilim, who were said to rule the earth with violence and chaos? Why did this story remain hidden, ignored, and erased from the official canon of Scripture? Is there a deeper, more unsettling truth behind their existence that we have yet to understand? This is more than just a tale of monsters. It's the unraveling of an ancient secret, a secret that speaks to the very fabric of our creation. It's about the forbidden knowledge that corrupted humanity, the apocalyptic end that came as a result, and the terrifying legacy that still haunts us today. You'll hear the truth behind the judgment and the ultimate destruction of the Nephilim, and why their spirits were condemned to wander, wreaking havoc on mankind for all eternity. In the pages of the Book of Giants, you'll find the chilling truth that was left out of the Bible. The answers to questions that have remained unanswered for centuries will finally be revealed. So, if you want to dive into this ancient mystery, to understand the full extent of the Nephilim's legacy and the darkness they left behind, keep watching. This is the story that will change everything you thought you knew about good, evil, and divine justice. The Forbidden Rebellion, when angels went astray. Picture this: heavenly beings, divine messengers created by God Himself, chosen to watch over humanity, the caretakers of our world. But then, something unimaginable happens. These watchers, these celestial guardians, descend from their sacred station, abandoning their purpose for a moment of forbidden desire. They look upon the daughters of men and are consumed with lust. They choose to defy their Creator, and in a decision that would forever alter the course of humanity, they break divine law. The rebellion wasn't a simple act, it was a cosmic betrayal. The Watchers didn't just fall into temptation. They planned, they swore an oath together. They vowed to abandon their heavenly post and descend to earth to take wives from among humankind, knowing the consequences of their actions. The celestial realm watched as they disobeyed, but it was too late. The seeds of corruption had been sown. From this forbidden union, the Nephilim were born, giants, beings of immense power, a hybrid race of angels and humans. These giants, born of rebellion, were destined to walk the earth as creatures of incredible strength and insatiable hunger. But their existence wasn't just one of power. It was a tragic existence, one marked by a hunger for destruction. These Nephilim, while towering above humans, were not noble creatures. No, their power was not used for good, but for destruction. They devoured everything they could, first the resources of humanity, and when that wasn't enough, they turned on the humans themselves. Their ravenous appetites knew no bounds. They consumed not only food, but also life itself. The Nephilim slaughtered entire villages, drank the blood of animals, and brought terror wherever they went. But this wasn't just about physical destruction. Their rebellion had consequences far beyond the violence they inflicted. The Watchers, in their desire to corrupt humanity, didn't just teach the Nephilim to destroy. They passed on forbidden knowledge. This knowledge wasn't about love or peace. It was about war, sorcery, and manipulation. Azazel, one of the chief Watchers, taught humanity the art of war, the forging of weapons that would bring death and bloodshed. Others imparted dark magic, astrology, and the secrets of the cosmos, twisting humanity's understanding of the divine. They corrupted the purity of the earth and her people. In their desire to control, they led humanity into chaos. The world became a battleground. The earth, once pure, was now corrupted by their teachings. Humanity, once innocent, was now tainted by the dark arts. But this is where the story takes a haunting turn. While the Nephilim may have felt unstoppable, there was something they failed to see. The world they were creating was not their own. It was an abomination that could not survive. A reckoning was coming, a reckoning that no one, not even the Nephilim, could escape. The giants' terror, the horrifying prophecy. The Nephilim, in their reign of terror, were not just physical giants. They were monsters within. And as the world trembled beneath their feet, something even more terrifying began to happen. These once mighty beings, who had walked the earth with an arrogance and pride unmatched, began to experience something new, fear. It was through dreams that their fate was revealed. Mahwe, one of the giants, dreamed of a vision that shook him to his core. In his dream, he saw a tablet being washed away by water. The names on it, names that represented life and legacy, disappeared, leaving only 3 remaining. It was clear. This was a prophecy of a great flood that would cleanse the earth, sparing only those deemed righteous. The Nephilim, once confident in their strength, were now paralyzed with fear. The giants who once terrorized humanity were now trembling, their minds consumed with the inevitable end. 2 other giants, Ohia and Hahia, the sons of Shemyaza, shared the same terrifying dreams. One saw a garden where heavenly agents arrived with axes, chopping down every tree but one. Another vision was even more chilling. Visions of destruction, of their empire falling apart. And the most terrifying part was that they were helpless. There was nothing they could do. The earth itself seemed to be turning against them, and the divine hand was preparing to deliver its judgment. As the giants gathered in assembly, they realized the magnitude of their fate. Their power was no match for the coming flood. In their desperation, they turned to the one man who might be able to intercede on their behalf, Enoch. Enoch, a righteous man who walked with God, was their last hope. They sent Mahwe to seek him out, to plead with him to understand the dreams and ask for mercy. But as Enoch received their petition and stood before God, he returned with the answer that none of the giants could bear. There would be no mercy. There would be no reprieve. The judgment was final. The flood would come, and the giants would be wiped from existence. The names that had been washed away in Mahwe's dream were not just symbolic. They represented the erasure of the Nephilim from the earth. There would be no legacy, no future for them. The Watchers, their fathers, would be forced to watch the destruction of their children before being bound in the depths of the earth for eternity. The divine judgment was absolute. The sin they had committed could never be undone. This was a fate that had been sealed before the giants even realized it. The very foundation of their existence, built upon rebellion and corruption, was destined to crumble. The fear they felt was not just about their end. It was the terror of facing the finality of their sin, knowing that there was no escape. Their once powerful, monstrous form became a tragic symbol of their disobedience. They had been created to watch over humanity, to guide and protect, but instead, they had brought destruction upon themselves and the world. The judgment had come, and there was no way out. The apocalyptic end, the cleansing flood. As the days of the Nephilim drew to a close, the divine judgment was set in motion. The flood, the great cleansing of the earth, was no longer just a prophecy. It was an inevitability. The world had become so corrupt, so soaked in violence and bloodshed, that it needed to be purged. The Nephilim, the Watchers, and all their followers had brought about this catastrophic event. The flood was the ultimate reset. It wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a divine response to the brokenness of creation. The earth had been tainted by their actions, and now the Creator would wash away the filth they had created. The giants and their monstrous ways would be erased from history. The Watchers, who had once been exalted beings in the heavens, would be bound in the depths of the earth, their punishment a reminder of the consequences of disobedience. But what of the spirits of the Nephilim? What happens to beings born of both divine and mortal blood, beings who exist on the cusp of two worlds? Their bodies, destroyed by the flood, could not rest. Their spirits could not ascend to heaven, nor could they descend to the peace of the dead. Instead, they were left to wander the earth, restless, tormented, and full of hatred. These spirits, these evil forces, would continue their reign of terror, not in flesh, but in spirit. From this moment forward, the Nephilim would become demons, the lingering echoes of their violent legacy. Their once mighty bodies may have been destroyed, but their spiritual war against humanity had just begun. The flood didn't just drown the Nephilim, it condemned their very existence to eternal unrest. These spirits would never know peace, never find rest, and would continue to torment humanity, causing chaos and suffering wherever they went. This was the true legacy of the Nephilim, not their reign on earth, but their ongoing battle in the spiritual realm. This haunting legacy of the Nephilim reminds us that the consequences of our actions can echo far beyond our physical existence. The giants were not just punished for their rebellion. They became the very embodiment of the evil they had brought into the world, and their influence continues to this day. The spiritual war that began with their creation still rages on, a battle between good and evil, between the forces of light and the darkness that was birthed in the hearts of the Nephilim. And so, we are left with the question, what can we learn from this ancient story? How can we guard ourselves against the same fate, the same corruption? The answer lies in understanding the power of choices, the weight of rebellion, and the ever-present possibility of redemption, even in the face of the darkest of legacies. The giants' final days, the unrelenting judgment. The end of the Nephilim was inevitable. It had been prophesied, spoken of in whispers among the ancient ones, and now the time for reckoning had arrived. The once mighty giants, whose very presence instilled fear in the hearts of humankind, began to feel the weight of their inevitable doom. They had ruled the earth with violent hands, devouring everything in their path, leaving destruction in their wake. But as the days grew darker, as the heavens began to shift, the giants realized, no matter how powerful they were, their reign was over. Imagine the weight of that moment. Imagine the fear in the hearts of these colossal beings, who once thought themselves invincible, when they realized that the Creator, whom they had defied, had turned his face from them. The flood was coming, and it wasn't just a punishment. It was a cleansing. The very earth that had once been their playground now awaited its reset. The giants trembled, their colossal bodies now fragile in the face of the inevitable. But it wasn't just the giants who would be destroyed. The fallen angels, the Watchers, who had abandoned their sacred duties and led humanity into chaos, would face their judgment as well. Shemyaza, the leader of the Watchers, who had orchestrated the rebellion, was not exempt from the divine wrath. His punishment would be far worse than the Nephilim's. The Watchers would watch as their children, the giants, were wiped from existence. And as their monstrous offspring perished in the flood, the Watchers themselves were cast into chains, bound in the depths of the earth for eternity. There would be no redemption for them, no second chance. The heavens had spoken, and their fate was sealed. The flood wasn't just a physical event, it was the final response to their corruption, the divine reset of a broken world. It was a judgment that no one could escape. The earth, once beautiful and pure, had been tainted by the bloodshed and violence of the Nephilim and their fallen fathers. The flood washed it all away, drowning the corruption, leaving only a remnant behind. And as the floodwaters rose, it wasn't just the giants' bodies that were destroyed. Their spirits, born of both the divine and the mortal, could not find rest. Trapped between two worlds, their souls became restless, wandering the earth for all eternity. These disembodied spirits, the remnants of the Nephilim, became the demons that would plague humanity for generations to come. The flood may have erased the giants from the earth, but their legacy, their evil influence, would live on in the form of demonic forces. What was once a tangible reign of terror became something far worse, a spiritual battle. The Nephilim may have perished in the flood, but their spirits, unable to find peace, would remain trapped on earth. They would become the evil forces that now plague humanity, unseen but always present, driving humans toward violence, hatred, and destruction. Their punishment was not just death, it was an eternal torment, a never-ending reminder of the price of rebellion. As the floodwaters receded, the earth was cleansed, but the giants were not forgotten. Their spirits continued to haunt the world, their evil influence remaining long after their physical bodies had been wiped from existence. It's a chilling thought. What if the demons we face today, the forces that drive us to evil and chaos, are the very spirits of the Nephilim, still waging war against humanity? The flood may have cleansed the earth of their physical presence, but their spiritual legacy still lingers, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The legacy of the Nephilim, a warning for the ages. The Nephilim's story doesn't end with their destruction. It doesn't end with the flood. No, their legacy lives on, etched into the very fabric of our world. The forces of evil, the darkness that we face in our lives today, are a direct result of their rebellion. The Nephilim weren't just giants, they were a warning of the consequences of defying divine law, of turning away from the Creator. Their rebellion brought destruction, not just to themselves, but to all of creation. And even though they are gone, their influence remains, buried deep in the spiritual realm. The Nephilim's legacy is not just one of power and violence, it's a reminder of what happens when we turn our backs on the divine. The consequences of their actions were far-reaching, affecting not only their generation, but every generation that came after. Their rebellion taught us a valuable lesson. Disobedience to God's law brings destruction. And even though their reign was short-lived, the Nephilim's impact on the world is still felt today. But there's hope in the story of the Nephilim. There's a lesson for us all. Their story is a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable evil, there is still a way to rise above it. The flood may have wiped out the Nephilim, but it didn't erase their legacy completely. Their spirits may continue to haunt the earth, but the power to overcome them lies within us. Through faith, through obedience, through the strength that comes from walking with God, we can defeat the evil that seeks to destroy us. The Nephilim's legacy is not just one of darkness, it's a challenge. It's a call to action. We are called to fight against the forces of evil that seek to destroy us, to stand firm in our faith and resist the temptation to rebel. The Nephilim story is a warning, but it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to choose the light over the darkness, to choose obedience over rebellion, and to choose life over death. The flood may have wiped the giants from the earth, but their lesson remains for us to learn and apply in our own lives. So, what do we take from this story? We take the understanding that our choices matter. Our obedience to God's law matters. The Nephilim story isn't just ancient history. It's a lesson for today. It's a reminder that the battle between good and evil is real, and the decisions we make have eternal consequences. The hidden legacy, a secret buried in time. The story of the Nephilim and the Watchers didn't end with the flood. The earth was cleansed, the giants were washed away, and the floodwaters receded. But what if I told you that the echoes of this ancient tragedy still resonate through the world today? That the legacy of these fallen angels, their corruption, their rebellion, has left a lasting imprint on humanity that stretches far beyond the pages of ancient texts. The giants may have been destroyed in body, but their souls were not freed. Their spirits, imprisoned between two worlds, are now the very demons that haunt humanity. Think about it. The evil that plagued the earth in their time, the destructive hunger, the thirst for power, didn't die with them. It lives on, lingering in the spiritual realm, casting a shadow over us all. These are not just myths or stories to pass the time. This is a deep cosmic truth about the origin of evil in the world and how it continues to shape our lives today. The Nephilim's legacy is not just a tale of monsters and fallen angels. It's a story about the evil that walks among us, even now. We can look at the chaos, the violence, and the brokenness of the world around us, and we can see the fingerprints of their corruption. Every time we fall into hatred, violence, or greed, we are partaking in the same rebellion that began with the Watchers. Their influence continues, subtly guiding us into temptation and darkness. But the good news, the story isn't over. The legacy of the Nephilim, though dark, doesn't have to define us. Through the power of faith and obedience, we have the strength to break free from the cycle of destruction they set in motion. It's easy to look at the world today and feel overwhelmed by the evil that exists, to feel like we're helpless in the face of it. But the truth is, we have been given the tools to fight back. We can choose to live by a different law, a higher law, one that is guided by the Creator and not by the forces of darkness that the Nephilim unleashed. In their story, we find a warning, but also a call to action. The Nephilim were born from rebellion. They sought power and dominance, disregarding the divine order. But in the end, it was their disobedience that led to their downfall. It was their refusal to submit to the Creator's will that sealed their fate. And that's the lesson for us. Obedience to God's law is the key to breaking free from the chains of sin and evil that bind us. The Nephilim may have left their mark on history, but their legacy is not the final word. We have the power to choose a different path. So how do we apply this lesson to our lives? We start by acknowledging the power of our choices. Every day we are faced with decisions that either align with divine will or follow the path of rebellion. Just like the Watchers, we have the freedom to choose. We can choose to live by love, compassion, and justice, or we can fall into the same destructive patterns that the Nephilim embodied. The choice is ours. But it's not just about avoiding evil, it's about actively pursuing good. The Nephilim story isn't just a warning about what happens when we rebel against God, it's a challenge to build something better, something stronger. We can rise above the darkness that once consumed the world by choosing to walk in the light. Every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every time we choose to serve others instead of ourselves, we are rejecting the legacy of the Nephilim and creating a new legacy, one of hope, healing, and redemption. The Nephilim may have once been giants in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of the Creator, their power was fleeting. They were consumed by their own rebellion, their own hunger for dominance. But we have the power to choose something greater. We have the power to rise above the darkness, to walk in the light, and to leave behind a legacy that will endure for eternity. As we reflect on the story of the Nephilim, let it serve as both a cautionary tale and an inspiration. It is a reminder that our choices matter. It is a call to live according to a higher standard, to embrace the divine calling placed upon our lives, and to reject the forces of darkness that still seek to lead us astray. The legacy of the Nephilim may haunt the world, but it does not have to define it. We have been given the power to overcome. So, as you walk through this world, remember the lessons of the Nephilim. Be mindful of the choices you make. Seek the light, embrace the truth, and live a life of obedience to the Creator. In doing so, you will break the cycle of darkness and leave behind a legacy that shines brighter than the giants ever could. The story of the Nephilim is not just a tale of monsters and destruction. It's a story of redemption, of choosing the light over the darkness, and of becoming the giants of good that the world so desperately needs. As the story of the Nephilim and the fallen angels draws to a close, it's not just the giants that fade into history. The weight of their legacy lingers, casting its long shadow over the fabric of the universe. And it's a legacy that we can't ignore. It's not just a tale of ancient rebellion. It's a reflection of the choices we face every day. The world around us is filled with the echoes of the Nephilim's existence, the temptation, the thirst for power, the violence, the hunger for more. It's a temptation that calls to us from the darkness, inviting us to follow a path that leads to destruction. But what if we could break free? What if we could walk away from the legacy they left behind and choose something better? The Nephilim were created from rebellion. Their strength was unmatched, their might unstoppable. But in the end, it was their rebellion that brought about their downfall. And in that downfall, there's a powerful lesson for all of us. The giants fell because they rejected the divine order. They turned their backs on the Creator, thinking they could live outside of His will. They embraced their power, but it wasn't enough. They were consumed by their own pride, their own hunger, their own darkness. And now we stand at the crossroads. We are faced with the same choices, the same temptations that led the Nephilim down their path. The world offers us power, fame, and riches, just like it offered the giants. But the question is, what do we do with that power? How do we choose to live? The Nephilim story is a cautionary tale, a warning that the path of rebellion is one that leads to destruction. It's a path that can seem so tempting, so alluring, but in the end, it only leaves you hollow, broken, and lost. But there's another path. There's a path of light, of obedience, of living in alignment with the Creator's will. It's a path that requires sacrifice, that requires us to put aside our own desires and follow a higher calling. It's not an easy path, but it's a path that leads to true fulfillment, to peace, to joy that no amount of power or wealth can provide, and the choice is ours. As we reflect on the story of the Nephilim, let it be a reminder that the choices we make matter. We can choose the path of darkness, the path that leads to destruction, or we can choose the path of light, the path that leads to life. The Nephilim's legacy is not just a story about giants, it's a story about the choices we make every single day, and in those choices, we shape our future. If this video has touched your heart, if it's helped you find light in the midst of darkness, I invite you to support this journey with a small act of kindness. Every like, every comment, every share, those are the things that keep this channel alive, that keep these messages flowing. If you've found something here that resonates with your soul, if you've learned something that can guide you in your own journey, your support means the world. It's not about donations or material things, It's about the energy we give to each other, the way we lift each other up, and the way we share the truth that can change lives. Together, we can break free from the cycle of rebellion. Together, we can choose a better way. The Nephilim story is not just their legacy, it's our challenge, our opportunity, and our reminder that we have the power to make different choices. Let's choose the path of light, the path of love, and the path of life. The giants may have fallen, but we have the chance to rise, and as we do, we can leave a legacy of hope, healing, and divine truth that will last for generations to come. So if you feel this message is one that speaks to you, don't hesitate to show your support. Every little bit helps, and together we can make a world of difference.